When the earthquake struck, I was out getting grass to feed my livestock while my wife was at home. I fell down and watched as 3 houses totally collapsed nearby. I thought my wife was dead. Straight away I ran to the house and saw that my wife had been rescued by our neighbor. I was very relieved when I saw she was okay. The land was still shaking, so I took my wife to an open space and we stayed there all night. Luckily, my wife had been in the outside toilet and not the house. Otherwise, she would have been injured. The whole village was destroyed, so we stayed in the plastic tunnel we used for cultivating plants. Help only came after 1 week. Before it came, we had to rely on our neighbors for food and means of cooking. We then slept in the goat shed for 2 months.
Disaster itself was huge. It's something which was not seen in Nepal for almost 80 years now. So it's being seen as the massive earthquake in the last 80 years. So because of the fact that the remoteness compounded the aid delivery, a lot of damage was also post-disaster. So a lot of needs which were severely needed in the immediate aftermath of the disaster were not being met because of the remoteness and the access. Plus the fact that Nepal only has one airport, a lot of aid which actually flew in from that single airport. So a lot of aid was actually stagnated behind the airport itself. So it was not entering Nepal in time, and that actually severely hampered the relief in the early days of the disaster.
During the earthquake, I was in a church near the village. I ran outside and thought, today I'm going to die. There is no hope. Everything was covered in dust. All the houses were damaged and I was in complete shock. Luckily, there were no injuries in this community, but our goat was killed. All 13 households nearby were totally damaged and we had to shelter under tarpaulins at the roadside. No immediate help came, but 3 days later we received assistance with food. It took a month to clear away all the rubble and debris, then another 15 days to construct our temporary shelters. I was in a neighbour's house when I felt the earth shake. I screamed, "My house, my house!" I fell down and was unconscious for 1 hour because of swelling on my head. My neighbours warned me not to go back to the house as it was too damaged. So we went to the plastic agricultural tunnel and stayed there for 1 month. I am on my own as my husband died 24 years ago. 2 or 3 houses were completely destroyed and all the buildings had big cracks.
This was my first experience of a big earthquake here. I was in the house with my family. We ran to the river to save our lives. The house was severely damaged and my mother's leg was broken. Our livestock was also killed. After the shaking finally stopped, we called my friends to help take my mother to hospital. There were landslides and cracks blocking the way. After 4 hours of walking, we managed to get my mum to the hospital. We had to carry her there. When I returned from the hospital, the second big earthquake struck. This time the shaking was a lot worse as the epicenter was nearby. My family were crying, "We are going to die, we are hopeless." I don't feel safe here anymore because of the landslides that come down by our house. Also, we are due another earthquake in Nepal, and I think that when that comes, we will die. I want to move my family somewhere safer, but we don't have enough money to do so. There were 5 casualties in this area and 1 person was trapped. When the rescue team came to pull her out, it was too late, and she was already dead. Her legs were broken and she had bled too much. It takes up to 5 days to get to hospital, so there was no time to rescue her. After both earthquakes, we received no help from the government or security forces. We just started helping each other, neighbor to neighbor. I am now in shelter construction. I help to build homes for other people voluntarily because many people do not have the money to pay me. We still often get tremors, sometimes up to 15 to 20 per day. After the earthquakes, I would feel very scared during each tremor and run to a safe place, but now it's normal to me.
What we are encountering now is a lot of communities who want to shift in some areas, but of course land is an issue, and tenurial rights are not so easy to come by because the entire geography is shaking. So the government is right now moving into a mapping of sorts where they will designate safe zones and unsafe zones. So it's a matter of time before the government is going to give them that space. But till that happens, and as we know that government processes are usually long because there's a lot of paperwork involved and GPS mapping, GIS mapping to be done. So I believe like communities will still have to fend for themselves for some time, but I think incrementally we will come up to a position where they might have safe land. But given the fact that everything is shaking, I don't know how feasible would that be.